Hello everybody, and welcome to our virtual classroom. So for Unit 3, Part 3, we are going to be covering inferences, assumptions, and biases. Each one of these we use on a daily basis, whether we like to or not. So, let's go through them. First up, we have inferences, which are conclusions reached on the basis of evidence and reasoning. For inferences, it is like when you may go about cooking. You have this idea of how the food is going to taste. You taste maybe a piece of here, a piece of it there, some spice, and you throw them all in. You have a dash of this, a mixture of that. And when you get the final product, hopefully, it tastes pretty good. But usually, once you get more accustomed to cooking, it's all a variety of things. It's not very succinct or following the recipe exactly. That's why it's kind of hard to follow our grandmother's cooking. In the case of essays, we do similar things. We infer, we make hypotheses based on particular prompts. Any given prompt that we may have, we think about it, we analyze what it is that it is asking of us, and we come up with ideas how we may want to go about arguing for that particular case. When we go to do research, we're hoping that the research matches up with what we're saying. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But ever so often, we end up having our research add to what we are arguing for. Now, the case of assumptions. Assumptions are things that are accepted as true, or as certain to happen, without proof. I'm wondering if you may have heard this phrase here? Yes, in case you haven't, that is a common phrase, and it is written that way because you're making assumptions. You're thinking about things without having proper proof. One thing that a lot of people tend to lock onto are the ideas of tattoos. When people see others with these arm tattoos or neck tattoos, even if it's a small, little tiny tattoo, there are assumptions that are made about people. I grew up watching a lot of the fantasy and adventuring movies, so seeing a lot of those tattoos, in my mind, meant you were an adventurer, possibly a pirate. Definitely somebody mysterious. What is it that meant enough to you to put that on your skin? Nowadays, it is seen as an art piece, tattoos. Many people have them, and they choose specific colors or meanings, something, because it's a part of art. It's the reason why we call, or you may have heard this can be called a canvas. However, there are many that think that these tattoos lead you to be a criminal, somebody unworthy of being in society. And there are still some people out there that have these ideas in their heads. It's not as common, but it's still there. There's still assumptions that are made. Again, applying this to our essays, assumptions are made when we don't look into particular things. We don't look into the research. If we assume that something is true or false without proving our case, then we have made an assumption. We are not proving our thoughts. How we make assumptions in our writing is when we don't do our research. If we are not supporting what we say in those body paragraphs. Take, for instance, we make assertions, but then we have no examples to support what we just said. we don't have a way of saying this is true because of these reasons. And that's where a lot of those fallacies occur. When we start allowing ourselves to make these choices or make these references or statements, and we have no proof. Now, the last part, what falls back into assumptions. This whole thing of biases. And a bias is a prejudice in favor of or against one thing, person, or group compared with another, usually in a way considered to be unfair. And it could be used as a noun or a verb, depending on how you're using it or how you want to think of bias, but it is a prejudice statement. It is the idea that's saying, well, I'm awesome, but they're not, because I am made of the most awesome things. A lot of people do this. They don't realize that they're doing this, but it's there. And it is caused by, one part, our families and how we were raised, and another part by our society, people that we associate ourselves with. Take, for instance, if you can remember back in high school. In high school, you may have had one group of friends or another group of friends. My day, we had the nerds, and we had the populars. Populars tended to be the cheerleaders and the football players. Well, from the nerd side, we thought we were better because of how we were doing in school, or the games that we played, or the fact that we felt our friendships were more real than theirs. And the popular group, though I was not there, I've had many conversations with people who were a part of that popular group. And in the popular group, they did have the same ideas. However, how many of them felt inside was, is this really the case? Are we actually friends? Or is this just all a facade, a mask that we've set up? But outwardly, always, we are the best of the best. All you others are secondary. And the same with the nerds. We are the best of the best. All you others are secondary, separate from us. And so on and so forth. It happens when we're adults as well. This idea, I have the better job because I'm in the better placement. The full-time employees compared to part-time employees. There's some kind of bias that occurs even within our cultures. Growing up, oh well, they're nice, but they're not Mexican. Or from what I've heard from some of my friends who have Filipino parents, oh well, see, they're nice. They're not like those kind of white people. They're a little bit more like us, like the Filipinos. It happens in most cultures, and most races, most social groups, even within ourselves. This idea that I might be better than somebody else. Take, for instance, somebody who has curly hair. Ah, well, see, I have the superior hair because it's curly. That would be my bias. Has no bearing on any kind of argument, and really, hair is hair. A lot of people either have it, or they don't, they lose it in some way, shape or fashion, whether through genes or through, unfortunately, cancer, a few other things as well. It's there on our heads, and for many people it can be quite annoying. Curly hair is not actually anything of superior force. But these things are in our heads. We use each one of these when we're forming our ideas or interacting with our world. In that, when we look at assumptions or when we look at biases. The thing we have to take into account is when we come upon something where we have this idea, oh, I am better than, or they must be like this. We need to stop and assess that, which the stopping is like 2 seconds of an idea. It suddenly pops into our head, wait a minute, why am I thinking that? Why am I making that assumption on this particular person? That's the thing about these. You can't apply good or bad qualifiers to these ideas or these actions. We're going to assume things. It's in our nature to try and put the pieces together. The problem is when we act on those assumptions, when we put people into particular boxes because we've looked at them in a particular way. You happen to be so tall, you happen to be blonde or blue-eyed, and therefore you're put into a box. You must only be this type of person. You see somebody who has a little bit more Asian of features, but when they speak perfect Spanish, because they're actually from Mexico or someplace of South America, Central America, or North America, and the Mexico region. We can't put people in boxes. We shouldn't. Like I said, we'll still have our assumptions in our heads, but we need to get to know each other. We need to do research. We need to apply our knowledge and make sure we have proof of something before we start settling on those boxes, or before we start making assertions in our essays. So as practice, something that you guys get to do, you're going to see in the pages section a couple of paragraphs, but words have been removed. There are 7 blank spots for 7 different words. And what you're going to do, I want you to take a look at these things and see what words you would put in there. At the end of the given time, as you'll see there on pages, you will then discover what the words actually were. Alright, I thank you guys for following along for Unit 3, Part 3. The next video that you see will have Unit 4, which will have 3 parts. So, stay tuned, and be well.